Now that we learned the very basics of Microsoft Office Excel, let us move on to reviewing the structure of the RAP Calculator and Budget Workbook. Overview of the workbook. The RAP Calculator and Budget Workbook has been created to help co-sponsors, newcomers, and constituent groups, also referred to as CGs, with the following. Understand the financial cost of sponsorship. Assist in developing a monthly budget for the newcomer family. Realize different options that are available to lower the financial cost of sponsorship. Track the newcomer's expenses and income, and help the user to manage the budget. It is important to note that the RAP Calculator and Budget Workbook is updated whenever changes are implemented by Immigration Canada or IRCC. Therefore, it is important to use the version posted on ORAT's website. Workbook structure. While the workbook is comprised of 7 worksheets, the user will be asked to complete only 3 of the 7 worksheets. The 3 sheets that are to be completed include the user input sheet, the budget, and the actuals worksheet. Here is a brief description of the 7 worksheets. Instruction guide. This tab provides an overview of the workbook. User input sheet. Here, the user will enter key information that will be used throughout the workbook. Once data is fully entered, the user will have a clear understanding of sponsorship costs, and a draft budget will be provided. Summary report. This is an automatically populated worksheet which uses the information entered in the user input sheet to provide an at-a-glance look at the finances for the sponsorship year. It itemizes the various parts that make up the sponsorship cost, namely startup costs and monthly RAP support. It also includes the amounts to be paid out for each of the 4 quarterly installments. This, of course, assumes that the full liability has been deposited. It also provides the net monthly employment income threshold, above which monthly support can be reduced. Budget. With the completion of the user input sheet, the user is provided with a draft monthly budget which can be amended by the user as required. It is important that any changes made to the budget do not undermine the basic need for planned revenues to be equal to or greater than planned expenses. This will ensure that the newcomer is able to live within their means. The 12-month budget corresponds to the 1-year settlement period for the newcomer. For Project Hope cases, the budget worksheet is to be completed by the CG and is to be submitted to ORAT along with the check request form. Once the budget is set, presumably shortly after the arrival of the newcomer and in consultation with the newcomer, the budget worksheet should not be adjusted to reflect actual expenses and income. The Actuals worksheet has been created for this purpose. Actuals. This worksheet is intended to reflect monthly cash outflows, expenses, and cash inflows, namely employment income. For Project Hope cases, the workbook is to be updated with actual expenses and income and sent to ORAT on a quarterly basis along with the completed check request form. Actuals versus budget. This is a fully automated worksheet. The Actuals versus Budget worksheet provides a picture of the newcomer family's actual spending compared to what was budgeted. Negative values indicate that actual expenses have come in higher than the budget, which may indicate that a further review of expenses may be required. This is particularly true when monthly expenses are greater than revenues. FY projection. This is a fully automated worksheet which provides a full year view of cash flows. It uses data from the Actuals tab for months that data has been entered for, and budget numbers where actual information is not available for. How to complete the user input sheet. We will use the following example for illustration purposes. We have a family of 5 that will be arriving shortly to Canada. The family is comprised of a mother and father and 3 children. One child is 18 years of age. A child between the ages of 18 and 22 are considered to be an adult dependent. One child who is 12 years of age, in other words, a school-age child, and one child who is 2 years of age, which is considered to be a preschool-age child. Now let's begin to complete the user input sheet using the family of 5 example. User input sheet. Let's begin by entering the name of the constituent group or CG in cell C4. You will notice that there is no shading in the cell. The user is asked to complete all unshaded fields in column C. Place your cursor on cell C4 and enter the name of the CG. In our example, we will use St. Michael's Cathedral as the CG. If you do not have a CG or don't know your CG, please leave this cell blank. The name of the principal applicant is to be entered in cell C5. G number. Here you can enter both text and numbers in the cell. In our example, we will use the following G number: G2002 2020. The family size. Here you will notice some direction that has been provided for the user, which has been inserted beside the information that is requested. In this case, family size. It is directing the user to enter a numeric value and not text. If you enter text into this cell, a dialog box will appear indicating that this value doesn't match the data validation restriction defined for this cell. Simply click on the Retry button and then enter a numeric value. In our example, we will enter the number 5. Family composition. In the notation provided, it indicates that you must select from a pull-down menu. You cannot type data in the cell, but must select from the pull-down menu. If you click on cell C8, you will see a box adjacent to the cell with a down arrow. This indicates that there is a drop-down menu provided in cell C8. If you click on cell C8 again, you will see only 2 options on the list: single or single parent, or couple. Place your cursor on the one that reflects your sponsored family and click on it. In our example, click on couple. Once you have done that, the value in the cell changes to what has been selected by the user. In this case, cell C8 should read couple. Number of children. Remember the definition of the family that IRCC uses. A family consists of a mother, father, and dependent children under the age of 22. In our example, we will enter the number 3. Again, as per the added notes, you are to enter a numeric value and not text. If your application is for a single person or family of 1, you do not have to complete the breakdown of family composition. You can leave these values as 0. Number of preschool-age children. In our example, we have 1 child that is preschool age, so we will enter the value 1. Number of school-age children, K to 12. Here we enter the number of children that are school age from kindergarten to grade 12. In our example, we will enter the value 1. Number of children aged 18 to 21. Here again, using our example, we will enter the value 1. Number of individuals aged 65 or older. If there are individuals that are aged 65 or older, please enter the number of individuals in that age category. Arrival date. Enter the arrival date if known. Monthly transit rate. In this cell, please enter the cost of a monthly transit rate for an adult in the municipality in which the newcomer resides or will reside. The default value included in the workbook is the cost of the monthly transit pass for an adult living within Toronto. Estimated monthly rent. Given the tight rental market in the GTA, we would encourage you to use a realistic number in this cell. A quick online search should give you an idea of the average monthly rental cost for the unit size that is appropriate for the family. For the purposes of this example, we will enter $2,100 as the cost of a 3-bedroom apartment. Value of newcomer assets. Here, the user is asked to input the amount of funds that the newcomer has arrived with or is expected to arrive to Canada with. If you plan to enter data in this field, we advise you to complete the Declaration of Funds and Assets on Arrival form that is available in the Forms section of our website. For example, in the case of a single individual newcomer who has arrived to Canada with $10,000 of cash or personal assets, you will see the value of 0. If you enter $20,000 in the field, eligible personal assets that can be directed to settlement expenses in the cell underneath it will reflect $5,000. The following table shows the maximum personal assets that refugees can retain without affecting the amount of income support they may receive. Any remaining assets can be factored in when determining the level of income support needed. Family composition and maximum amount allotted of personal assets in Canadian dollars. Single person, $5,000. Couple, $7,500. Single plus one dependent, $7,500. Each additional dependent, $2,500. For example, the personal asset exemption for a family of 4, mother, father, and 2 children, is $12,500. There are a number of additional supports that IRCC requires be provided to newcomers. These include additional funds for expectant mothers, for newborns, for those who are on a special diet prescribed by their physician, and for school-aged children. We have created a special allowances section which will allow the user to input information when these supports are required. Please note that you are required to indicate if the newcomer qualifies for any of these allowances. You will notice that we have included additional notes in column E that will provide additional information about these allowances. If you enter yes to maternity food and/or the dietary allowance, you will also need to enter the number of months for which these allowances will be required. A doctor's note is required to obtain either of these 2 allowances. To be eligible to receive the newborn allowance, the newborn had to be born during the 1-year settlement period. If there are school-aged children, the children may be entitled to receive the allowance 2 times during the settlement period if the newcomer arrived between September 1 and May 31. In our example, the school-aged child will be eligible to receive one school startup allowance. We have included a feature in this worksheet to notify the user when errors have been made or data has been omitted. A red error message will appear explaining the nature of the error. It is important to correct any errors or omissions that may have taken place. Here is an example. Under number of children, if we enter the value 4 instead of 3, the following error messages will appear. Error in either family size, family composition, and/or number of children. Review, number of children, number of preschool-age children, number of school-age children, and number of children 18 to 21. Review, number of children, number of preschool-age children, number of school-age children, and number of children 18 to 21. These messages will direct the user to the cells that need to be revised. In some cases, the error message would indicate the cell reference instead of the cell name. For example, error, D25 must be greater than 0. Under the Resettlement Assistance Program, RAP section of the worksheet, you are provided with the start costs, which is a one-time payment to the newcomer, monthly RAP support, and a FY or annual support for the newcomer family. These values are calculated based on the information that the user has input to the worksheet. This section has been included so that the user is able to enter the value of any in-kind support that will be provided to the newcomer. In-kind support can be used to lower the monetary support provided to the newcomer. For Project Hope cases, any sponsorship monies saved as a result of the use of in-kind donations is to be used to sponsor another refugee family who currently live in challenging circumstances overseas. For the most part, in-kind donations are used for startup-related items. For those sponsors who plan to provide their newcomer family with free or subsidized room and board, there is an opportunity to reflect the value of these items under the monthly RAP support items of Basic Needs Allowance and Shelter Allowance. It is important to note that the Basic Needs Allowance deduction is only possible only if the newcomer is residing with the party to the sponsorship. You are required to provide an estimate of the value of all in-kind donations based on the replacement cost of those goods. In our example, we will assume that the following goods have been donated in support of the newcomer family. Planned actual in-kind support provided. Staple allowance, $300. Basic clothing allowance, $500. Winter clothing allowance, $300. Basic household needs, $400. Furniture allowance, $1,500. Linens, 0. Utility installation, $100. School startup allowance, $75, which brings us to a total startup of $3,175. IRCC specifies the maximum value of in-kind deductions for all applicable startup and monthly RAP support categories. These maximum values are outlined in column J, beginning at row 30. Please do not enter an amount in excess of these maximum values. If you enter a value that exceeds the allowable maximum, an error message will appear. The final section on the user input worksheet is the Net Employment Income Contribution to Expenses calculator. This calculator is used to determine the amount of the newcomer's net employment income that is to be directed towards their expenses, thereby lessening the financial support required by the sponsor and, when it comes to Project Hope cases, preserving money to assist with other refugees. To calculate the eligible net employment income, the user is to enter the net monthly income of the principal applicant in cell C61 and of any adult dependent members of the family, children between the ages of 18 to 21, in cells D61, E61, F61, and G61. While the net income contribution values on row 63 do not factor into the total sponsorship support values reflected on this worksheet or on the summary report worksheet, it can and should be entered into the actual worksheet. We will talk more about this in the second tutorial when we will look at how to enter actual expenses and revenue in the actuals worksheet. Summary report. Now we can move on to the next worksheet, which is called the summary report. Simply place your cursor on the tab named Summary Report located at the bottom of the workbook and click on it. As mentioned before, this worksheet is automatically populated using the information entered in the user input sheet to provide an at-a-glance look at the finances for the sponsorship year. It also includes the amounts to be paid out for each of the 4 installments, provided the full liability was deposited. It also identifies the net monthly income threshold above which monthly support can be reduced. The report includes the following information: the one-time cost for each startup category. In this example, the total for all startup categories combined is $9,875. When the in-kind support of $3,175 is taken into account, the overall cash required for a startup has been reduced to $6,700. The report also includes the summary for the monthly and annual WRAP support required for this family. On a monthly basis, $2,893 is to be provided to the newcomer family. Annualized, the total financial support required across all monthly WRAP categories is $34,716. Support information is also provided for any special allowances. All these figures will change depending on the family size and composition of the family that you are sponsoring. The summary report then provides the subtotal sponsorship cost, which excludes the value of any eligible personal assets which the newcomer brings with them to Canada. The total sponsorship costs include any eligible personal assets brought to Canada by the newcomer. For this example, the total cost of sponsorship is $41,416. This assumes that the newcomer family has not brought any assets with them to Canada. If the newcomer brings assets to Canada in the amount of $20,000, the user is to input this value in cell C17 of the user input sheet. The result is a reduction of $5,000 in the cost of sponsorship. Lastly, the summary report provides the installment schedule, which outlines the amount of monies that will flow to the newcomer family each quarter. This assumes that full sponsorship monies have been deposited and does not include any reductions as a result of eligible employment income that is earned by the newcomer family during their settlement period. Budget worksheet. Now let's quickly turn our attention to the budget worksheet. Once the user input sheet is completed, The budget worksheet is automatically populated, providing the user with a draft monthly budget for the entire 12-month settlement period. While the budget can be customized, it is important to recognize that any changes to the budget should stay within the costs prescribed by IRCC. This will ensure that the newcomer has a sustainable solution that can be supported in the event that the newcomer is solely reliant upon social assistance after the settlement year is completed. The budget worksheet is divided into the following sections. Expense section. This section is automatically populated with the amounts specified in IRCC's RAP guidelines. This includes both the amounts for startup and monthly RAP. The in-kind section. This section reflects the value of in-kind support that is to be provided or that has been provided to the newcomer. The net expense section reflects expenses less the value of any in-kind donations. Personal assets section. This section reflects the eligible portion of the newcomer's assets that can be directed to lowering sponsorship costs. An employment income section. Here the user can input the estimated eligible employment income that the newcomer can contribute towards their settlement expenses. The source of funds section. This allows the user to input the monies that will be dispersed to the newcomer, funded either by the CG or co-sponsor and/or by Project Hope funds. For family link cases, it is the co-sponsor typically that funds the entirety of the case. While funds are dispersed by ORAT on a quarterly basis, the funds, and especially the monthly RAP amount, is expected to cover a 3-month period and can be reflected as such on row 53. Lastly, the budget workbook also includes other sources of income, which should be reflected in this worksheet. Sometimes these other sources can be used to cover any shortfalls that may occur. This concludes the first RAP calculator and budget workbook tutorial. We hope that you find the information provided to be a help to you. The second tutorial will walk you through how to customize the budget, how to use the actual worksheet, where the user can input actual cash outflows and revenue inflows, and then how to interpret the 2 remaining worksheets, the actual versus budget and full year projection worksheets. Thank you for participating in this tutorial.